About 2 minutes away from the end of the trading day on this Friday afternoon, Katie Greifeld and Isabel Lee in for Romaine Bostick. And here to help take us through the closing bell, it's a global simulcast. We're joined now by Carol Massar and Tim Stenovec. We bring together all of our various audiences to talk about this drawdown in the S&P 500, Carol. We were just discussing whether or not this was sort of a delayed reaction to all of the hot inflation prints that we've gotten this week.
Tim has been, like you've been saying over and over, it's like, why today did all of a sudden equities decide to react?
Or why did bonds decide to react today?
The global bond market, right? Like, why today did they catch up with the news?
I mean, maybe oil is, a little part of the story, but we've seen these numbers before. Brent contracts to $109 a barrel.
Is it because nothing came out of the U.S.-China?
WTI, $105.60 a barrel.
I mean, you could say maybe it's Friday. Maybe people don't want to hold risk into the weekend, but certainly we've seen plenty of Fridays where that isn't the case, but certainly some sheen coming off this rally, Isabel.
Our guest earlier just said maybe people are waking up to the jet lag, so maybe there is that. And we had a note just come in minutes ago from Keith Lerner saying that this is a Teflon market. I mean, there are a few risks starting to stick, but maybe overall people are still optimistic. But yeah, maybe they're just realizing and they decided to react once and for all.
Well, when bond yields start to move up, you start looking against that against other asset classes or investments or what you get in terms of a yield on the S&P 500. You start to, kind of can make these comparisons. So we'll see what investors do.
Absolutely. We'll see, if we get any truth socials, too, from the president. We know that he has cared about the bond market in his second term, but crickets so far. Meanwhile, we take a look at how we're closing on this Friday afternoon. The S&P 500 looks like we're going to finish about 1.2% lower. Remember this time yesterday we were talking about 7,500 on the big index. You can see that's closer to 7,400 today. The Nasdaq also down by about 1.5%. The Dow down as well. The little guys also taking it on the chin as well, with the Russell 2000 firmly in the red, Carol.
All right, let's go back to the S&P 500. Just doing a refresh here on my Bloomberg. Most names in the index lower today. 360 names in the S&P 500, guys, losing ground on this Friday. 141 to the upside. And Isabel, you had 2 unchanged.
Looking at the IMAP, it's mostly red, but you see pockets of green energy up by around 0.7%, but the rest is really down. Tech is down by nearly 2%. Materials down by nearly 3%. Health is also down by 1%, and the list goes on, but definitely mostly red there on your screen.
Yeah, a ton of red there. All right, so let's go to some of the gainers in today's session, and I'm going to go to the number one gainer in the S&P and the NASDAQ 100 today, and that is Dexcom. Ticker is DXCM. That's stock up at its highs more than 9% today, but still finishing with a gain of about 6.5% for the Friday trade. This is after the maker of continuous glucose monitoring devices gave a long-term growth outlook at its investor day that impressed analysts. You also had the activist investor Elliott Investment Management taking a stake in the company and struck a settlement that will put 2 independent directors on the board. That deal stipulates the 2 will collaborate to appoint those 2 new directors who will add board expertise in medical technologies and operations to help the company scale. So keep in mind, a little perspective here. The market cap for this company peaked above $63 billion back in 2021. It's declined since then and has about a $23 billion market cap today. And we've seen it cut its revenue outlook in recent years, citing some execution problems. We also saw a new CEO take over in January, the former CEO becoming executive chair. So they've had a lot going on. But nonetheless, this was a much more bullish day for Dexcom in today's session. Let's flip it on over to, those glucose monitors. I want to credit my co-host, who's just brilliant.
And where is he?
He's like, you got to do Dexcom, and then you got to do this next story because you got to talk about ice cream because sometimes people who eat ice cream have to have these glucose.
I didn't say that part.
Well, sounds like you did.
I just thought it would pair nicely.
For no reason.
It's like a fine wine.
I'm going to get to pizza in a moment because you could also, tie this together. Let's talk about Magnum Ice Cream. We did see this stock move up almost 11% here at the close, finishing just off its highs. The most since the stock's December listing. Reuters reported that the private equity firms, including Blackstone and Clayton, Dubilier and Rice, are exploring potential bids for the company. Reuters citing people familiar with the matter, saying that the firms are monitoring Magnum's share price, waiting for summer sales before deciding whether or not to pursue bids. Company spokesman declined to comment to Bloomberg. We should point out this record intraday rally coming after Unilever spun off Magnum Ice Cream in a triple listing in Amsterdam, London, and New York in December.
Yummy.
But they own Ben & Jerry's. They own, I think, Klondike's. And
More of
Magnum.
a froyo kind of gal. You know?
Are you? Froyo.
Nothing like original tart, no flavor.
Puppies like froyo, too.
Wow, no kidding.
Just going to put that out
Okay.
there. All right. In keeping with this theme, you have some ice cream. Sometimes you have ice cream after pizza. Sometimes you have ice cream before pizza in my house. All right. So Papa John's also higher in today's session, just up almost 6.2%. This is, again, Reuters. Wow, they've been working hard. Reuters reported investment firm Earth Capital working with the pizza chain's largest U.S. franchisee, who controls around 10% of its domestic restaurants, to take the company private. Reuters cited 3 sources, which it did not identify. So, yeah, this is going on. So we'll see what happens with this one.
Okay.
I'm just hungry now.
How about some socks?
Okay.
To eat?
No, you can't eat these chips. But the Philadelphia Semiconductor Index off its worst levels today, but still closed down 4%. In fact, you had only 4 stocks in the socks actually move higher today. Skyworks, Qorvo, Astera, and Qualcomm. ARM Holdings fell more than 8.4%. Nova fell 8.4%. You had Intel fall 6%. Look, the stocks is still up this year, more than 60%, but a little bit of a give back in chip names today. Next, let's talk about Ford. After surging more than 21% in the last couple of days, Ford shares are taking a bit of a breather, finishing down today by 7.5%. It's actually the most in more than a year. A bit of a cooling in the enthusiasm over Ford's potential to benefit from the boom in energy demand for AI. Remember, it was Ford's energy storage business and possible future tie-up with AI hyperscalers that led to this rally. Still, even with today's decline, Ford shares are still more than 11% higher since the close on Tuesday. That was the day before the rally started. And speaking of rallies fizzling, Cerebras Systems, after yesterday's blockbuster IPO, I think we could call it, shares fell today by just about 10%, still closing the day at about $280 per share. Remember, it was $185. That was the IPO price, and they did close higher yesterday by about 70%, Katie.
All right, well, let's take a look at the bond market, which was on fire in a bad way today. You can see that sell-off really taking place throughout the curve from the short end to the long end. You can see the 10-year yields rose by 11 basis points, a similar amount when it comes to the 20-year Treasury yield as well. For both the 10-year and the 30-year yield, we're looking at the highest levels in about a year here. The 30-year yield well above 5% at this point. The 10-year Treasury yield just kissing about 4.6%. It's going to be interesting to see, if this sort of sell-off momentum continues into next week, or whether, again, this is just a risk-off sort of Friday. Don't want to be too long headed into the weekend, but certainly some eye-catching moves and levels themselves.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Also eye-catching, we talk so much about the $90 trillion great wealth transfer, that massive shift from the older generation as they pass it on to maybe their wives or their kids or their grandkids. Well, part of this massive wealth transfer also includes a lot of old cars, vintage cars, collectible cars, and we're calling it the vehicular spin on this great wealth transfer. And it's a lot of money.
Well, Hagerty estimates that 12 million enthusiast vehicles will transfer to a new generation in the U.S. over the next 15 years. It represents about $570 billion worth of cars. If you think about it, passing a car on to another has deep implications. People describe their cars in this story. They inherited them. They're totems that mark important people in their life, and certainly how they're remembered. And Alex Roy is somebody, Hannah has done a great piece for Bloomberg Business Week, Hannah Elliott, and you got to listen to her podcast with Matt Miller. But she talks to a car enthusiast, Alex Roy, who he's an entrepreneur too, but he talks about how he regrets selling his father's Cadillac and his mother's Porsche, so now he's going to hold on to this 1970 Citroen that his brother left behind to him.
Wow. Well, I would certainly hang on to that. But speaking of wealth, another story on the terminal today. An anonymous bidder paid $9 million to have lunch with the likes of Warren Buffett, as well as Steph Curry, as well as his wife, Aisha Curry. Of course, this is all for charity, but $9 million. This lunch is apparently going to happen on June 24th. It's going to include the winner, again, anonymous, and 7 guests as well.
How come Steph Curry gets to go this year?
I don't really know.
How come it's gone down in price? Was it the last auction in 2022? An anonymous person spent a record $19 million to secure
That is wild.
And this is
a cut.
happening in Omaha instead of New York this time, right? Because it used to happen in New York.
That is true.
Maybe
There's
that
so
was
many
worth
questions.
$10 million.
What are they going to eat, and where is this going to
I'm
be?
guessing steak.
And I want the transcript. So
I'm guessing if you steak, Coca-Cola,
Right.
salad.
Yeah, right.
yeah,
Salad, maybe.
maybe some C's candies for dessert.
Delicious.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll see. But this annual lunch has been happening or Buffett has been routinely hosting some sort of lunch auction for more than 2 decades here. So the tradition continues.
It's for charity.
It's for charity. It's
Yeah.
for a good
Sweet,
cause.
super sweet.
Yeah.
Love it that it continues on.